So there's a great scene in a Disney movie, Disney cartoon, that maybe two or three of the students may have watched when they were young. And it is from the Princess and the Frog. And it's the beginning of the movie when Tiana, the main character, is a child, and she has this knack for cooking, which she draws from her father. And so they are making a pot of gumbo at the beginning. And her father articulates for her the larger implications, the transcendent implications of the making of the gumbo pot. And she's more concerned, of course, by how it tastes. And he's trying to connect the how it tastes to what it does, right? And what it does is connected to how it impacts the community. And so the scene ends after she's got it just right, and she says, it's the bee's knees, which is to say it's finally ready to be eaten, it's good. They invite the community, and they're in a poor community in New Orleans, Louisiana, and they invite all the folks around them to come to the porch and partake of the gumbo pot, which is also the way in which I grew up. My grandmother, on her baby blue colored porch in South Central Los Angeles, with a bunch of migrants from Louisiana, from Mississippi and Alabama and Texas, would invite folks over to partake of the gumbo pot every time she made it each year, which is extended to me. I make a gumbo pot between the 30th and 31st of December every year to be served by New Year's Day, where I now ritualistically invite folks over in the same fashion. And so what that scene and what my upbringing articulates to me is the extent to which I grew up with a kind of perpetual articulation of ritual through food and faith in my community in ways I didn't even know it. So every month, at least one Friday every month, we would have a fish fry that I know is extended in Catholic traditions as well, in communities as well. But that fish fry was drawn from rural Louisiana tradition among African American Christians, with a little mixture of a little voodoo and a little Catholicism in there as well, where we would ritualistically come together around a meal. And what you would get in that space was a mixture of religion through stories and oral tradition mixed with the erotic through, because at some point the blues would be played, and at some point the skirts would be hyped up, and the movements of the older women in that space would look a little inappropriate to me, or at least when I was a kid it looked gross, right? But there was this commingling of cultural expression that for them formed ritual. In another chapter of the book, I used the line of an Englishman who was traveling throughout the South during slavery, observing slave communities. And in one community, he says that what he observed was something akin to what he called a Negro ball, where on this community, in this community of enslaved people, they had come together around meal, around sharing. And he said it was so ritualistic, he could tell that they had been doing it for some time, but it looked, even though it was taking place in the dust of the outside spaces, and you know, no one was dressed in their best, it looked to him like a ball because of the impact that it had on that community. And so I see ritual within the African American culinary and religious community as something that does just that. It brings them together. But when I say bring them together, I do mean that it, in a robust way, binds the community. It allows them the space ritualistically to counter all the negative rituals that they will face against their bodies on a daily basis. And so it becomes a very critical component to Black religious life, in as much as it becomes a very critical component to Black culinary culture, because it allows them the space to, again, fully articulate, separate from the worship space. It allows them the space to fully articulate their humanity. And I'll close with this. One of the best examples of this is the decision that Father Divine made in his movement to, during the Great Depression, have these lavish feasts. And his goal during those lavish feasts was not just to feed the believers, and of course his religious community worshipped God through him, or some would argue worshipped him, the Father Divine. But it was comprised of largely African Americans who were poor. And yet, while everyone was struggling, and it wasn't all African Americans, Mother Divine, and the second Mother Divine was actually a white woman, and there were other whites within this community, but mostly black. And during this time of struggle for so many, white and black in this country, they were having these lavish feasts, and he was saying to his adherents and parishioners that I want you to eat to your fill. I want you to be plump, because what that does is it shows the world just how potent and strong this religious community is. That while everyone else is struggling, our ritual allows us the space to not only bind the community, but heal the community. But not only that, to make this community robust. And it's so robust that everyone around will see us. I think, you know, what he was articulating was a traditional form that he had experienced as a child in the South. And so in very significant ways, it seems to me, this becomes the marker of ritual within the African American religious and culinary tradition.